Hello and welcome to another episode of Chaos im Kopf, your coaching podcast with me. I'm Caro, your host. And unfortunately, it's in English again because I have an amazing interview guest here tonight, actually, two. So you have to endure again with my German accent. I will try the best to sound native speaking English, but actually, my interview guest has the even more beautiful English accent in French. Her name is Élenore de Posson, and I'm currently reading her book, The Path of Femininity. And her book really feels like drinking this warm, cozy cup of cacao that is nourishing your soul because it teaches you a lot
Mm,
about, in a way, I guess, um, seeing that life is not just hustle culture and not just controlling, and that there's actually a lot of beauty in letting go and surrendering and being yourself and having all these more gentle qualities. And to me, it's super healing because whenever I'm in my work, in my job, I always feel this grind, this hustle culture, this feeling of I need to control, I need to do reports, budget lists, planning, whatever. I really have been taught this way. And I feel like I'm deconditioning myself, and it's very healing, but it's also very challenging. So I'm very, very happy that we can go deeper into that. And first of all, Ela, I would love to say you to say hello, introduce yourself, let us hear your beautiful French accent.
Thank you, Caroline, for this beautiful introduction. I love how you described my book being a cup of cacao nourishing your soul. That's a nice way to put it. So, hello, everybody. My name is Élenore de Posson. I'm from Belgium, from Brussels originally, but I live in Canada now. And I'm really, really passionate in helping women and women entrepreneurs as well really step into their purpose and embody their soul because we all came here with a soul mission, a soul purpose, a unique frequency, a unique way of being. And when we can express that into the world, everything starts to fall into places. And it's beautiful because truly we're just here to be deeply, deeply ourselves. And that's when we find the fulfillment that we're seeking. That's when suddenly we start to magnetize the right people, the right friends, the right clients, the right love, the right partner into our life. That's when opportunities come our way. And that's also when we start to step into the abundance that we actually naturally are. And so I do that through my mystery school, through my Divine Feminine membership, through the books that I write, and through my podcast as well, the Sacred Roots podcast.
I love your podcast. I can highly recommend it. Yes, thank you for introducing yourself, Ele. We also have someone else here, Dani. You all know her already. She was already in the podcast once with me too, because Dani also worked once already with Ele together. And I thought it would be very nourishing and also very interesting to also hear her perspectives. Dani, do you just want to introduce yourself shortly too?
Yes, it's so nice to be here. Thank you. And also to be here with both of you. I am part, I discovered Elai's book 2 years ago now. It's almost 2 years ago, I think. Um,
Yep.
and it really just activated so much within me. And I think the way you described it, that feels like this warm cup of cocoa, that really does resonate. And it felt like this powerful activation, but in a soft way that didn't scream at you. And that was like, go out there and be your feminine self. It was more like, oh, I already carry all of this within me. And then shortly after, LA offered the Swan Temple, which is this bi-weekly membership where we come together, um, a group of women led by LA, and to kind of embody all of this knowledge, to check in with each other, to learn from LA, to learn from each other and through sharing. And that really helped me so much in this huge transition phase that was the past 2 years, but honestly, the past 7 years, really, ever since I moved to Munich. And I'm really, truly grateful and very grateful to be here with both of you, since Caro and I, we worked together as well in the past. And we could learn from each other. And maybe, Caro, you want to speak to this at some point too, about bringing something into the world and kind of the two different ways of approaching it kind of were like clashing together. We're like, we want to surrender, but we can't. But we're still like very in the headspace of go, go, go. And it was just a really interesting experience to learn how to, it's not just knowing it, but embodying it is a whole different story. And when we get to embody it, it feels amazing, but it really, you have to decondition. And so, yeah, really, it's really beautiful to be here with you guys.
Thank you too for being here. Yes, so let's make what we talk about a little bit more clear because I really want to share that I'm currently exactly in one of these transition phases. And I think what I noticed recently is that for a lot of people, when you're not living your life aligned with who you are, what you want to bring into this world, what you really care for, your life will throw you into situations where you have to change something about it. Either you will feel terrible about it, or stuff will go really wrong and you have to change something about it. I feel like it's actually helping you also to embody more of who you are. And I feel like in the last years, I went through a lot of processes where I noticed, oh, for example, this job situation isn't working for me anymore, or this situation with a friend is not working for me. And then I always noticed a certain cycle of understanding I have to let go of it, letting go of it, then having lots of space in my life, and then feeling a bit lost, because you created all this space, you let go of something that wasn't anymore fitting to you, which was a very brave choice also. And then you have all this space in your life. And maybe also because you're not completely sure how you want to express yourself, there is a certain form of um, darkness where you don't yet know what will fill this darkness. So it's super scary. And I notice when I'm in these transition phases, and everyone has them, you have them after you leave school, you have them after you leave uni, then there is always this coping strategy of controlling. Then I suddenly start to plan. I start to control. I start to be hard on myself because I think I have to do loads of things. And what Ele is really teaching is kind of to go the opposite way. I felt like what you teach was kind of more to actually surrender into the darkness, wait for your intuition to guide you again. But I notice, as a wonderful control freak as I am, it's very hard to embody this gift, because it's still so new. So I would love for you to share a little bit more about these phases of in transition phases, and also how to deal in a different way with letting go of something and then not knowing where to go on, which is normally, I think, the exact point where control mechanisms creep in,
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Caroline. It's such a powerful place to be in, and so many people right now are in that transition. I call it actually the death rebirth journey. Or in other words, it's the embodiment of your soul. It's the journey of truly embodying who you are. And so, as you naturally felt called to, it begins with letting go. It's really this idea that if something is not working for you, if something is not fulfilling you, if something is not bringing you the joy or the alignment that it used to, it's because you've outgrown that situation. And so if you want to find that fulfillment, well, you have to let go of what's not fulfilling you in the first place, right? But first, I want to really honor you for doing that, because a lot of people get stuck at that first phase already. They're like, no, I can't let go of that job before I find something else. No, I can't let go of that relationship before I know what I'm going to do next. So holding on to what's not working, whether it's a job, whether it's an offer that you're putting out into the world, a relationship, but it can also be more subtle, like a belief, a habit, something that you identify with. If you don't let go of that, it's going to hold you back, and life eventually will force you to let go of it. So for you, in your case, I think you were mentioning it was connected to your work, right? To your job, something that you had to let go of in your job. For me recently, because we keep going through these death, rebirth phases all the time, we're infinite beings, we're spiritual beings, always there to expand and express more of who we are. And so for me recently, when I got pregnant with my second child, pregnancy also puts you naturally into that cycle again. But the first trimester, I was really, really sick. I really had low energy. And so I could barely do anything. And for me, that came up as I have nothing to give. I feel like Even showing up for my colds is difficult. I mean, I'm so lucky because I love and adore what I do. So it gives me energy because it's totally aligned with my soul. And so I was actually grateful because it would fuel me. But I realized that I kept telling myself I am useless. And then I really sat with that. Where does that come from, that need to be useful? Who am I if I have nothing to give? And so my identity was very much connected to I'm a giver. I create, I serve, I help others, I write books, I channel this wisdom, it's there for others, and I have to give it back. But if my energy is so low that I have nothing to give, who am I? So I had to let go of that identity of I'm a giver so that I could connect with the deeper part of me, which is that I am no matter what. So it's just to give you an example of how these cycles can begin also in a more subtle way when you've gone through like already bigger death rebirth journeys and soul embodiment journeys, because it's going to keep happening. So once you let go of that identity, that belief, that job, that relationship, that thing that's not working for you, and that life is really showing you in your face so that you can really see it, the second phase is about surrendering. It's if I love to use the wisdom of the seasons as an example, because nature has so much to teach us about who we are. So it's the trees that let go of the leaves because the leaves are brown. They were beautiful in the summer, but it's not working anymore. The leaves are on the floor, and then it's the winter season. And you were talking about that darkness because you don't have clarity. You don't see the next steps. You don't see where you're going to go. You don't see the light either. You're also more physically tired. And in the winter, it's the winter solstice. It's the darkest day of the year. So that darkness is absolutely meant to be there. Darkness is it's a feminine quality, actually, because that darkness is there to invite you to go within. And in the mystery school and in the Swan Temple, we have seen the alchemy of darkness and what darkness actually does to your body, to your chemistry. And so what it does is that it activates your pineal gland. In other words, it opens your third eye. It's a time for you to receive intuitive guidance, to receive visions, to be led by your light, the light that's within you, or the light that can be expressed through other people, through your intuition, through synchronicities, through signs. And the more you can be in the darkness, the more you can then see the light, because we live in a world of polarity and opposites. So the problem, this is where a lot of people get stuck, is that, ooh, we don't like darkness. And ooh, we don't like surrendering. It's really seen in our world as, oh, I'm waving the white flag. I'm failing. I'm giving up the battle, right? The truth is that surrendering is actually deeply leaning into your co-creative relationship, the co-creative relationship that you have with Source, with Spirit, with Father, Mother, God, and allowing the greater plan that is meant for you to unfold. Because that greater plan, you have no idea what it is. You don't know your purpose. Otherwise, you wouldn't be going through that journey, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, or you wouldn't be having these deep questions of like, who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? And it's normal that you don't know your purpose. You can't know your purpose. Because your purpose is something that is not going to come from the mind, the knowing mind. It's going to come from your soul. Your soul knows, of course. And she's going to reveal that information to you piece after piece after piece, because this is how the soul speaks. The soul speaks in the present moment, in the now. That's the only thing that the soul knows. Whereas the mind that's trying to control, the ego that's trying to control because it feels unsafe, because it doesn't have clarity, because it doesn't know where it's going, the ego is going to try to grasp onto a few things that it knows and try to control. and it's going to think about the future and about the past. Whereas the soul is really going to be, the more you can be in the present moment, the more you're going to be connected then to your soul. And your soul is going to tell you, what if you watched this video now? What if you read this book now? What if you took a nap now? What if you went to read a book in that cafe? And these actions, often they don't really make sense in the moment, because you're like, well, no, I have better things to do, or I have to figure out my career, or I have to apply for jobs, or I have to go on a Tinder to meet people because I just broke up with my relationship and I'm lonely. So your mind is going to try to make you control with all these actions, whereas your soul is going to tell you, do this now, and it's not going to make sense. But if you do, it's going to lead you to something else, and to something else, and to something else. And I call this gathering the pieces, because you are a beautiful puzzle, a beautiful patchwork. And as you connect all the pieces of the puzzle, suddenly they are all going to connect. All the dots are going to connect. And then you're going to be able to see clearly what this puzzle is about. The clarity is going to come back. Spring always comes back. We've never had a year without a spring, right? But we need to let go of the leaves first, and then we need to stand still in the winter and wait for the leaves to grow in the tree and to come out in the spring. So the winter season, this phase where you don't have clarity, where it's dark, where it's uncomfortable, where it feels like nothing is moving, actually everything's happening in that precious moment. Because that's when the roots are growing in the ground for the flowers to come out. The buds are growing in the branches for the leaves to come out. But if you try to take the flowers too quickly out of the ground, you're going to kill them. If you try to take the leaves too quickly out of the branches, you're going to kill them too. So this phase is really about waiting, trusting, and gathering the pieces until they make sense. And so what I tell my clients to do in that moment is to rest and to regenerate, because we live in a world that is so go, 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 go. And you're going to need that go, go, go energy for your spring and summer after. But right now, you're in the cocoon. And this wisdom is actually very ancient. We've totally lost it. And so I'm really passionate about teaching it. It's actually going to be the subject of my next book that I'm writing right now, because this was taught by Jesus 2,000 years ago. Jesus was saying, you must be born again to enter the kingdom of heaven. So basically, to be in the light, to express your soul, you must be born again. And so the first time you're born from the womb of your mother, the second time you're born from the womb of the great mother. So it's about allowing the universe to guide you in that rebirth journey, to show you the way. It's about you gathering the pieces, resting, and yes, letting a part of you die. And that's uncomfortable. To be like, I used to be a nutritionist, but that doesn't feel fulfilling. Who am I now? I used to be a giver. That was my identity. Who am I now if I have nothing to give? I used to work as a doctor. Who am I now? I used to be married in that relationship. Who am I now? And so it's a deep exploration of who are you and who did you come here to be? And life is constantly trying to show you who you are. Life is such a beautiful teacher. So if you can understand the co-creative relationship that you're in with life, with God, with your intuition, and follow that and gather the pieces, you're going to see how guided you are and how beautiful and deep this transformation is.
Oh, Ella, I'm so grateful we're recording this now in the winter time, because I think lots of people feel like struggle with the season, with the inner season of winter, with the outer season of winter. And it was once again like a nourishing cocoa to listen to you. Thank you so much for sharing. One interesting thing that I find is when I read your book, where you talk a lot about the gifts of this approach of life. is that my soul really longs for it. You know, I long to feel part of the flow of life, to trust that it will take me somewhere great, to trust that when I let go, I will be guided to some new things that I might not even be able to imagine. But I feel like, especially when you grow up in cities where you're very much, maybe even in families where religion isn't really a big part of your life, it feels like such a new thought, such a new belief. So it's very much like I always notice this wish to believe it, but still not really having this trust, you know, because trust builds over time by experiencing it over and over again. And what I find so beautiful about Dani and your story is that both of you have told me individually, like Ella, I learned from you in your podcast, and Dani, you've told us the story in the podcast too. You had this crazy situation that your intuition told you kind of overnight to move to a different country, completely change your entire life. And you felt, when you told me both of your story, you both sounded like you felt safe with it because you knew your intuition spoke to you, and you knew you were safe doing so. And I love to believe that once it's the path of your soul, you are safe. Nothing can happen to you. But what would, maybe I'm also curious to hear from you, Dani, what would you two can share about building this trust with your intuition, and how was it different maybe also when you had this even, maybe it was a calling, maybe it was a form of deeper knowledge. How was it different from maybe everyday decisions, you know? How did you build this trust, and how did you gain this maybe even this connection to your intuition in this moment?
Excellent question. Like trying to find, the first thought that I had was to become quiet. And I don't really mean necessarily in the sense of meditating on a cushion for hours, but quiet in the sense of tuning into yourself. And that can happen in so many different ways, through dance, through song, through going on long walks, but really finding those moments of quiet where you can listen to your heart and to your soul and the images that come up. And 7, 8 years ago, I think it's now 8 years ago, when I had that moment of, I'm going to drop out of uni, I'm going to move to Munich, I'm going to leave my life in the US behind. It wasn't a moment where I could actually listen to myself. I was on a trip in Bangladesh lying on top of this boat in the middle of nowhere. And I looked up at the stars and this voice, and I was so desperate because I knew something was so off. And I finally had this peace, and this voice came, which I've listened and heard before, but it felt like this absolutely silly thought. Move to Munich, and everything became quiet, and it felt like this big exhale. And because I was in a setting where I wasn't surrounded by noise and people and the next to do, I actually allowed myself to kind of bathe in that thought and to just kind of let it sit with me and be there. And then, like you said, after I chose to do that, everything kind of went haywire. And I felt like, oh my God, I lost my mind, because I literally did lose my mind. My mind was no longer taking the wheel. And a very similar situation just happened last year. I'm now studying musical theater, and I'm 29. I just turned 29. And the way I made that decision was so similar to what happened 8 years ago. It was as if my soul took over and just decided to apply to the school. And what's so interesting now, looking back, and I'm already in school for a couple of months now, and I am as happy as I've been in years. And what's so funny is that I've had small blurbs of images and dreams, reoccurring dreams, for years of singing and being on the stage. And I kept pushing it away. And what LA said at the beginning really, really resonated, of who am I if I don't give? I used to love to sing and to dance, but I also used to love to serve. And I consciously chose when I was 18 to not do any theater, because I was telling myself, I have to give back to the people, I have to serve. So all my decisions were based around that. And even when I moved to Munich, I chose a profession and I chose to do things that kept giving and giving. And there was a lot of joy in that. But I kind of thought that if I allowed myself to sing, to dance, to express myself, I'm doing something sinful almost. It really is that word. It felt selfish. It felt egotistical. I was like, no, I'm going to be on that stage and people will clap, but I will enjoy the clapping. And then that's egotistical. No, that's not helping people. And last year, I had some of the darkest times I've ever had. I felt so lost. And I did the same thing that I did 8 years ago, right before that voice became so present of move. I started praying, and I've always had a good connection to prayer. And I just said, Divine Mother, Divine God, I know you're listening. Please, please, please help me, because I'm in such a dark place. I've lost kind of where I can flourish and really bloom. Please just give me a sign. And I've done that in small ways over the course of the past years as well, and it always has helped. It's what Elise said. I would walk into a bookstore and there would be like a little post on the side, like, ooh, apply here, or this organization. This is kind of how I weaved myself through the past 7 years, and all of it was meant to be, because all the things I learned the past 7 years prepared me to really now enjoy studying, singing and acting and dancing. And I now even see a deep connection between serving and being in community and singing and expressing yourself and helping children, which I've done as well, and medicine and health. And I'm like, wow, me moving to Munich, me having the past 7 years here in Munich actually prepared me to now really step into what I really love to do. And I already know my schooling will not lead me down the classical path of, now you're an actor and you're going to be on the stage. No, I already have 1,000 ideas of, oh my God, the power of the voice, the healing power of the voice. Oh my God, helping young children to express themselves, to be themselves through songs, through acting, through embodying different roles, through connection, through community. And it doesn't feel selfish at all. And it's so funny because I kept telling myself, I'm selfish, I'm selfish. And now I'm realizing, no, my joy is the best gift I can give. And so back to your question, to how to listen to your intuition, it really actually is whispering to us all the time. My reoccurring dreams of being on the stage, every vision board I ever did had a stage on it. Or even in uni, I kept hearing the voice, don't, like, move, move, move. And I was like, no, I'm a straight A student. I'm going to do the uni path. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to da 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 da. And in fact, my intuition it's always there, and it's always so gentle, like Elaine's book, this like beautiful, it's just an activation that's always around you. And finding those moments, whether it's journaling, dancing, taking a walk, having circles with women, therapy, meditating, I think, and writing down what keeps reoccurring, what thought keeps reoccurring. Do I keep having the thought of, I actually need to break up with my partner. I actually need to break up with my partner. And it's this quiet voice. It's not the voice that's afraid, or it's the quiet voice of, this job doesn't make sense, like it doesn't feel right anymore. But logically, and often that's also very helpful, that it doesn't make logical sense. And actually, right before I signed my contract for the musical school, it was a day before it was due. I was like, no, I'm not doing this, because my logical mind was screaming. It was like, are you insane? How are you going to pay the bills? How are things actually going to work out for you? You're 29, 28 at that point. No one wants to see a 30-year-old on the stage. like, what are you doing with your career path? You're a naturopath, like do that. And I was like, oh, okay, I maybe that's my intuition. It's screaming. Maybe that's it. Maybe I shouldn't do it. But then I was like, no, because my intuition is not mean. It doesn't scream and it's not fearful. And I was like, if I don't sign this contract, I'm doing it based on fears that haven't even occurred yet. And then I was like, all right, here we go. And so far, I really have been carried and held, and LA was there for it all as well. She was listened to the before and the middle and the now, and yeah, it's really so. Thank you also for holding space through that journey.
My pleasure. I loved your answer. You explained it so beautifully. And yeah, just a few things that I want to add to your answer. The first thing that is important is to really understand how your intuition is talking to you, because it's the language of your soul. So yes, you can read books, and in the Path of Femininity, I have a whole chapter of how intuition talks, and that might be your experience, but it might be slightly different for you as well. So in general, your intuition is going to tell you to take action in the present moment. It's going to be loving. It's not going to be insisting. It's not going to be judgmental. It's not going to be fearful. It's going to be more supportive. Whereas your ego is going to be more about the future, the past, the fear, the worst case scenario, the judgments that I'm not enough, I'm not safe, I have to do this. So being able to understand those big differences really, really helps. But then your intuition can also express itself through the body, through images, through words that you hear, through other people, through dreams. So really being able to understand how is my channel working? How is my soul speaking to me? And observing that, being receptive to that. So you do need to create a bit of space and self-reflection to notice that. But it's going to be so key because it's going to help you in those very intense moments of like, is this my intuition or is this my soul? You know, just like you shared, Dani, is this the voice of my intuition that's telling me you're crazy, or is it my soul? And often what is crazy to the mind is actually very wise to the soul. So if it does sound crazy, it's probably because it's right. So
Yeah.
that's already a good thing to know. And the second thing I want to add is that trusting your intuition is really going to happen with practice. We all have amazing stories of when we did that illogical, crazy thing, and then it turned out for the best. And it's like confidence, you know? We want to be confident before taking action, but it's actually the action that allows us to be confident. We have it the other way around. So it's about taking a leap of faith, not taking it too seriously and be like, I'm taking this as an experiment. Let's see where it guides me. I'm writing it down in my notebook. This is what I'm fearing. This is what I'm expecting. Let's see how it turns out. And strengthening that relationship with this part of you that's guiding you through practice, seeing it as an experiment, and actually, yeah, really taking action, because it's in the action that the clarity is going to come. The third thing that I want to share about that is that something really powerful that you can do is look back at your life. Because as women, we're all intuitive. Human beings are very intuitive in general. Women even more, because we have more of that feminine energy. You can have men that are more feminine essence beings and, you know, women that are more masculine, of course. But generally, we have that intuitive knowing inside of us. And so looking back at your life and being like, where are the moments where I was really afraid of this worst case scenario? Did it happen? No. Did I figure it out? Yes. And these moments where I trusted my intuition, did it turn out better than I thought it would? Yes. So looking back into your life is going to help you find that confidence as well and be like, oh, it worked all those times. Why wouldn't it work this time? Of course it's going to work as well this time, because I'm always guided and supported.
So nice. I love listening to both of you. Thank you so much for sharing. I think what really comes up for me is when I read your book, when I really start to understand this new way of living, let's call it that way, it feels a little bit like I'm in the forest and there are two pathways. One pathways is the more masculine hustle culture pathway that also my parents' generation really lived, of having this clear path laid out for you, of knowing you go to school, you study, you work, you retire, family and stuff in the middle. And everything is so controlled. There is also some, beauty in that in a way. And then there is this other path, which is this totally mystic path, the path of your soul, where you have no idea where it's going to lead you. It's going to lead you to freaking meadows and sometimes also some spooky, dark parts of the forest, but then some beautiful light parts or mountains that you couldn't have seen otherwise. So there is so much beauty and mystique, and also, in a way, magnetism of wanting to go the more feminine pathway. And there is so much that you teach as well, which is about that your energy with how you approach your action is so much more important than the action itself. That first you have the right intention, and if you are in a good intention, this is what will lead the way. So actually, this is like the seed where you really should start to invest time and energy to have it right, whatever it is, whatever project it is, whatever action it is you do, which makes so much sense to me. And it's also so different than the masculine way or the hustle culture way, where it's like action is action, black, white, you can do something. It doesn't matter if you feel like shit while doing it. Actually, it does matter because you emit an energy, you emit a frequency, you emit a way of being that is also that other people can feel and see. And what comes up for me is that when I stand in this alleyway in the forest and I see these two paths, right? The left part, the feminine path, let's say, so mystique and so fun. But also there is this part in me that is so, you described it a lot as well, that is, you called it the ego, that is scared, that is telling you, are you crazy, woman? Let's go this path. Everyone went on the other path. We are not crazy to go in the mystique path. Maybe we won't get out of it ever again. Who knows, So there's this other part that is very fearful, that wants to stick to the known, to the comfort, that is lots of self-doubt, that wants to plan things out. How can we be there for this part that naturally comes up in situations like these? And especially, I guess, in the beginning, even more, because you said it's like learning, it's a muscle. So the more you strengthen the muscle of trusting the co-creator and intuition, the more safe you will feel with it. But especially in the beginning, there will be resistance. How can you be there for the part that will naturally come up, that will say, let's go the path that everyone walks. Let's not do this crazy stuff of surrendering and waiting for clues, How can we be there for that? If you want to share.
I love that question. Before answering that question, I just want to add a small nuance here, because I'm hearing you say the feminine and the masculine path. And I understand what you're saying when you're saying that, but it's not so much feminine or masculine, although the masculine is more the mind and the feminine is more the intuition and the soul. But it's more the society is this wounded masculine that is trying to control, that is trying to hustle, that is disconnected from the soul and from spirit. So our society, or the matrix, call it the way you want, is very wounded masculine and is trying to cope with these wounded masculine mechanisms. But there's a divine masculine expression as well, which is actually very connected to the feminine as well, which is very supportive, which is very compassionate. And it's just that for us to reach that divine masculine expression, because it's also a part of us, we first have to connect with the feminine, because everything begins from the feminine. When you think about it, every man is born from the body of a woman. Every day begins at midnight, and the night, the darkness, that's the feminine. Every flower, every tree is born from the earth, from the dark soul of the earth, which is the mother, the feminine. Because we are in this huge spiritual awakening, we are now talking a lot about the feminine, but the purpose is actually to bring the feminine, the divine feminine and the divine masculine together, and to create that sacred union, because we really, really need both. And so this path that you're walking, that you're talking about, it's about, do I follow what society has been telling me to do, which is wounded masculine? Or do I follow my intuition that's also been there the whole time, so that I can create this sacred union and express my divine feminine and divine masculine within myself? And so in order to do that, you have to love your ego. So this is going to sound pretty counterintuitive because you're like, well, no, this voice is screaming at me. Why are you telling me to love it? Well, because your ego is just trying to keep you safe. And your ego is very important. It's very useful. We need it. It's part of our human personality. Yes, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, but we have this human personality as well that is expressed through the ego. And the ego is really just there trying to keep you safe, trying to make sure that you're loved, trying to make sure that you fit in, because it was really necessary for you as a young child to be loved, to be safe. Otherwise, you wouldn't survive. And so all the ego needs is love. It's reassurance. So I like to give my ego a little name, or to see it as a persona. I love to see it as like a little guardian. Imagine it's the little guardian that's in front of like Windsor Palace in the United Kingdom, protecting the queen, the king now though. And it has this very strict uniform. It's super devoted. It's very like stern and determined, and it's going to do whatever it can to protect the queen that you are and the king that's inside of you. Well, that's your ego. It's just doing its job. But if you tell the ego, hey, we're okay now. I'm not 5 years old anymore. I'm 30. I'm 35. I'm 40. And look everything that I've achieved in my life. Look all the things that happened when I followed my intuition. Look all the lessons that I've learned. Look every time I fell and I got back up. Not only did I get back up, I actually learned so much. And just like Danny was saying, it's thanks to all these experiences that I am where I am now. And I'm realizing that I was just being prepared this whole time. It was all meant to be. So talking to the ego in that way, by showing her, him, however you want to visualize her, as a little guardian or something else, and really reassuring her. And this is something that I do more with my one-on-one clients, because in a group setting it's not possible. But we all have these different parts within ourselves. We have the protector, we have the ego, we have the little girl, we have the mother, we have the giver. And through life and all sorts of experiences, we've created separations between all of these parts. And the more we can speak to them, show them, reassure them, love them, thank them, because they're just trying to keep you safe and make sure that you're loved. So it's really having that conversation with yourself. The more you can do that, the more you're going to bring all these parts together and create that wholeness again within you, that's going to allow you to confidently, with your eyes closed, with deep trust in yourself and in life, follow your intuition and be comfortable in the unknown.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ella, for sharing. Dani, you worked with Ella in these circles. I think probably for you, lots of these fears or resistances maybe also came up along the way. How was it for you to be guided in the process?
I loved what Elay said, and it's really, it started with seeing the ego truly as a protector. So being reminded of that through her book and then through the work is not judging the fears that come up. And I think especially in the spiritual community, sometimes, or also old ways of thinking when spirituality really became more present, is thinking that if you have any complex feelings, fear, jealousy, rage, anger, anxiety, oh, you're not on the path. Oh, you're not as evolved or as spiritual or as wise or evolved or whatever you want to call it. And that really has been a huge hindrance in my life. I've connected to spirituality since I was little, and I kind of also used it as a way of, okay, well, if I can get all of this right, if I can be this embodiment of wisdom and light, then I'm gonna be a better person, and then I'm going to be on the right path. And then whenever I felt any complex emotion like rage, especially rage, or sadness, or depression, or anxiety, I would judge myself so much. And the same as I would judge myself if the limbo phase was happening after I made a decision based on my intuition. So all of these feelings that came up of, what are you doing? How stupid can you be? Oh my God, look at everyone judging you. And then me feeling feelings about that, or feeling hurt or sad because, the people around you might not understand you making bold decisions. You have to kind of make sense, but you don't make sense. You don't even make sense to yourself. And that can be so difficult. And then I would add, like, on top of this whole package, like a whole sandwich of judgment of, look at you not now being able to walk your path and walk your truth because you're feeling sad and abandoned and rejected and fearful. And especially through, connecting with a circle of women, with LA and with the other women there, and allowing myself to breathe some love and some gentleness and compassion into all of these feelings, and suddenly realizing this is my little child, like my little inner child that is saying, oh my God, please protect me, please be there for me. This has happened in the past and it felt like dying. And now understanding, okay, all of this fear is screaming at me because it's saying, please protect me. I'm in this car with you and I want to take over the wheel. I'm taking over the wheel, but only because controlling and feeling these feelings has protected me in the past when I couldn't. That was the thing that protected me. And now seeing, oh, this fear is coming up. All right, little one, I'm here for you. Now I'm an adult, like Elay said. I'm no longer 5 years old when I couldn't help myself. I can help myself now. And seeing all of these screams of sadness, of anxiety, of anger, of fear as, I love you so much, and that's why I'm screaming at you, because I am worthy to be protected. And then saying, you're right, you are worthy of being protected. And you're in a different situation and a different moment in time now. And I think that just kind of loosens this tight grip that happens when we are in this limbo phase of making a decision based on our intuition, and then the need to control happens because things are falling apart and being rearranged, and judgment from the outside might happen, and we feel confused, and then we are like feel so tight inside, and breathing love and compassion into these moments, seeking loving friends, people you can just let that out with no judgment, all of these emotions, feeling those emotions, and then rewiring kind of your, I wanted to say rewiring, rewiring your mind, but more like retraining and saying, hey, feel all of these things, but they're not the truth. Those feelings don't need to be your truth, but they're allowed to be felt and witnessed, and then let go. And I think that's how you kind of survive, because I think that was one of your questions, Kawa, before, how you survive kind of that transition phase, and how you don't only survive, but actually come out so much stronger because you release all of this judgment on yourself. And yes, I've kind of forgot what your original question was, but that's where I landed.
I love word letters. Thank you, Dani, for sharing. Wow, I would love to shortly summarize some things that I really take from this interview until now. Just because I think for everyone listening, it's so valuable, first of all, to be reminded that when you are in a phase of winter, in a winter, it's actually a very fertile phase, even if it looks like it's still from the outside. And if stuff in your life doesn't feel right to you and you are brave enough to let them go, it's actually creating the space for bringing in the stuff that is more right for you in the now, that will feel more like you, that there is so much hope in shedding something because there is so much space to go into a direction where you feel more like yourself, more alive, and that you very counterintuitively can actually allow the stillness to be until your soul will send you little, in how do you say, breadcrumbs, where to go next, little ideas, little hints. And then just as an experiment, to be brave enough to follow them and to learn more and more through the action of understanding, wow, this is actually taking me to some really interesting places. Like Dani's story, where she now is this musical actress living out her soul's, in a way, passion. This wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have followed the breadcrumbs, right? And if you wouldn't have allowed yourself to wander off a little bit and to see where you want to go. So I think this is something that I really take from it, that even though in the beginning it might be random where the clues take you, afterwards it will make perfect sense. And you will be so happy that you took this brave step of following your little clues. And the other thing that I really take from it is that when fear comes up, when doubt comes up, when stress comes up of, am I lost or is this right? You can love this part so much that is in fear, because this part just wants to protect you. And this is really allowing everything to be more soft. Just wanted to summarize that, because for me, this is really what I'm taking
Beautifully
from.
said.
Thank you, Ele. Now, I'm sure everyone is now super much as in love with you as I am. And everyone would really benefit from your spaces, being guided from you through these phases that feel uncomfortable. You said it like the caterpillar phase where the butterfly is in the cocoon and it's a bit mushy, but there will be a butterfly in the end. But it's so nice to have someone, I think, like you as a space holder in these times. So please share, how can one work with you? How can one find you? What do you offer?
Thank you. So right now there are two different ways of working with me. One is one-on-one. I have a few spots open for one-on-one mentoring, and the other one is my mystery school. I'm going to be launching a new cohort, a new round of the mystery school in March. So this is a 9-month journey where we go through those 4 phases that are really going to bring you from who you thought you were but didn't feel right anymore to really who you came here to be. It's a soul embodiment journey where I teach ancient wisdom, there's spiritual practices, there's mystery teachings that are all there designed to help you reconnect with your true essence and birth her into the world so that you can make the impact that you came here to make, so that you can experience the abundance that you naturally are, so that you can find the true fulfillment that you really know you're here to experience, because there's this little voice in your head telling you, I feel I'm meant for more. I feel something else is calling me. And that's because you are. That's your soul trying to tell you there's something on the other side of this journey waiting for you. So follow me, trust me. Maybe I'll show you the right people that can help you so that you can step into that person that you came here to be. And so if that's calling anyone, you can reach out. It's through an application now. I'm changing a little bit the onboarding process so people can apply. And if I select them, then we get on a 1-hour call to connect, to see if we're a good fit, to see, if that person still connects with my energy and my work. And then, yeah, we'll begin in March, end of March, all the way to December.
Beautiful. Wow. Sounds like a magical journey and container that you've
It is.
prepared.
It's very profound. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. So I will put all the links in the show notes. And maybe I would like to open the space to end this interview. If there is anything else that you still want to share, any thought, any little idea, maybe just anything that's still present within you that you would like to share.
Yes. I would love to share something about this year that we are currently experiencing, 2024, and how many of you are in that transition, in that phase of letting go of the old so that the new can be born. And we are going to have a very interesting year on a collective level, but also on an individual level. You're already feeling it and sensing it. And my invitation is for you to stay in your heart, to not let fear take over, because things are often different than what they look. Remember the winter season where it looks like nothing's happening, but everything's happening. And this death and rebirth journey that we talked about and the 4 phases, and I love to use the seasons as an example because we understand it so much better and we see it, we experience it every single year. This is happening at an individual level, but also at a collective level. So if chaos shows up at a collective level, if things start falling apart at a collective level, whether it's like the real estate market, the stock market, the financial market, there are so many people now saying, oh, the US dollar is collapsing, you have to buy gold. Oh, this is collapsing. I mean, there's so many things in the news that are just like fear mongering. Just remind yourself, this is just a fall season and it's all meant to happen so that spring can come after. You're not going to see the tree hold on to the leaves that are brown and that are supposed to die because they're not working anymore. You're going to see the tree let go of the leaves, trust, sit in the stillness, receive the visions, and allow spring to come. And so that's an image that you can use for your own personal transition, transformation, rebirth. But remember that that applies to the collective as well. And so when fear comes up, when doubt comes up, when chaos comes up, the key is always to come back to the heart and the wisdom that's there within, because you're all much wiser and much stronger than you think you are.
I love that. Thank you, Ele. Beautiful, beautiful words. Dani, is there anything that you want to share that is present with you?
I just wanted to say thank you to both of you. I think very grateful to be surrounded by such beautiful, powerful women in my life. Elaine's work, please work with her. She's amazing. And the mystery school, I'm still dying to be a part of it. I know one day it will happen. And Caro as well is an excellent, excellent coach. Really can just highly recommend working with both of you guys. So thank you, Caro, for bringing us together and for this beautiful conversation.
It has been a
Thank you,
true
Dani.
honor. Thank you, Ele. Thank you, Dani, for being
Thank you,
here.
Karen,
Thank
for
you.
inviting me.
Yes, it's always on. I love it so much to have a podcast. There is something so beautiful in being able to have these conversations and to, having much more people benefit from them. And there is always when I read your book, it has been such a magical feeling of knowing, having spoken to you now. I really have your voice in my head now when I read your book,
Exactly.
your beautiful
My
French
voice and my
accent.
accent.
I love it. So it's also something magical I love about having this podcast and being able to have one conversation impact so many other people. And it has been, honestly, it felt so good to have this conversation right now with you too. I think it was exactly also what I personally needed. And I hope also for you, when you listened in now, you could take a lot of wisdom from it. And I think all of us now wish you, the listener, a wonderful day. And I'm much looking forward if you are tuning in to the next episode next week. Thank you.
Thank you.